Well, hey YouTube, it's Petey. I'm back and I got the air conditioning running, so forgive the background noise. I made a video earlier today talking about the micro remote we did yesterday. We took our micro rig out and made some music at a local park. And we had an amp failure, the mains amp. When we began the day, it functioned, and right about the time where I began tuning, so pretty quickly, how I like to do it is I will fire up my wife's bass rig and we'll get her going and get her tuned. Typically on the big deal remotes, we set up all the gear, then we tune using a separate little tuner, a Korg tuner. We'll tune up on that, and then I'll fire up the bass, I'll fire up the background track, the drums, and then finally my guitar is last. So following that formula yesterday, everything was fine, and then all of a sudden the background track cut out, and it was kind of clicky. It was coming through on the peaks. It would come through like real distorted, and then it was quiet. And I've heard this type of failure before. I really thought that the amp board was fried, that something had happened, whether it be an impedance mismatch from using a 4-ohm speaker on one side and an 8 on the other, which I've done before. I've gotten away with it. Anyway, I took the thing apart today, and what I discovered was one of the output jacks was bad. It was a bad output jack, and I've had this before. I bought like maybe 25 of these jacks. I need to throw them all out. There's still some floating around here, and they don't make good contact, or if you excessively heat through soldering, it will melt the part that holds the tab in place. So when you plug the jack in, it might make contact, and then it might all of a sudden cease to make contact. Well, that's what was going on. It affected the amp in a catastrophic, like both channels weren't working. Everything appeared to be good on this. I thought maybe it was a bad cap. Like, I took it apart and checked everything out, cleaned it up. I had resoldered one of the electrolytic capacitors on the board, which that was all fine. There was some leftover flux down there that I had forgot to clean up. So what I did, I cut out both of the 1/4-inch jack outputs, and I installed spring clip terminals. What I found yesterday was that because of the failure of the one amp, well, I could have rerouted it to another amp and then rerouted my guitar to another amp, and we would have been able to play without leaving. We could have just changed things around a little bit. Maybe it wouldn't have sounded as powerful, but at least we would have been able to play right then and there. And I had made one amp terminate in 1/4-inch outputs and another amp terminate in spring clips, where ideally, like on the mini amp head that I went home and got, which saved the day, that has both. That has 1/8-inch input, which is stereo. It has 2 RCA inputs. It has 2 1/4-inch inputs. It has 2 1/4-inch outputs and 2 spring terminal outputs. A power switch, a fuse, a blue LED, and a master volume control. So that's a lot going on in that little amp. But I like that one. It's just that it's not 100 watts, it's 30. So we were running a little underpowered yesterday. But the good news is, and oftentimes when you're building, when I'm building stuff, like, I knew it, man. I knew that those 1/4-inch jacks were janky. I don't know why. I found them floating around in a parts bin, and I was like, oh, I should use these up. And then it ruined a whole day out, you know. So the lesson for me, PD's lesson here is don't scrimp. Don't, if a part is used and it's questionable, like after I realized there was an issue and I was monkeying with this, the plug, the speaker jack, kept coming out. I'm like, hey dummy, there's your problem right there. And I swear if I would have been conscious of that, I could have reached in there and pushed that tab down and then like, don't look at it, don't breathe on it. We would have been able to, I could have maybe limped it back into service. So that's the lesson, that's a takeaway. I thought it was worth sharing with you guys because I had just uploaded the video saying how I had blown 2 amp boards and I didn't know why on this project, and I kind of looked like a goof. So it was only 1 amp board that blew, and again, I have no idea how that, why that occurred. So ultimately, my batting average has increased quite a bit with blowing these amps because we had one that failed many years ago when the kids were here. The kids were still little, but playing with us in the family band. We had one of Gomte's amps. I had to go to the bathroom real bad. I said, go ahead and finish hooking this up and test it out. I went to the bathroom, came back, and that amp was blown, which is really frustrating because I'm sure she did exactly what I would have done, but I wasn't there to do the blowing of it up myself. So then it's like you feel like, oh well, maybe would it have blown up if I would have been there doing that instead of someone else? So there's this thing that I say where I'll be like, I gotta go to the bathroom, here you go ahead, and then I'm like, no, don't go ahead, just, it won't take that much more time, wait till I get back and then I'll throw the power switch, because if this thing starts smoking out, I don't want to be like, you're the one who turned it on. You know what I mean? So